firstly, we'll do an overview and the introduction to the seasonal campaigns. We'll look at our 4 top tips to creating seasonal campaigns, and then how ICS and Jarrang can help you with your seasonal marketing campaigns. And I'll just quickly draw your attention as well to the chat box, which should be at the bottom of your screen. If you've got a question either now or during this webinar, feel free to pop it in there, and the 2 guys will get to answering those towards the end of today's session. So I'll introduce you to Ben Hocking. He's our client success manager here at Jarrang. And then also with us this morning, we've got Martin Calvert, who's the marketing director at ICS-digital. Before I hand you over to Martin, I'll firstly just give you a little bit more information about who we are, what Jarrang are. So we are an agency that live and breathe, and we're 100% dedicated to email marketing. We've been around since 2003, so it's actually our 21st birthday in March. And we help businesses across a wide range of sectors create award-winning email marketing campaigns to fuel their growth and to drive revenues. And we work with your marketing business needs with bespoke services to fit only what you need to provide you with that capacity and expertise. So over to you, Martin.
Thanks very much, Carl. I'm very much happy to be here, and very pleased to be part of the webinar. In terms of what we do at ICS, lots of services that complement the expertise of Jarrang. Ourselves focus on organic marketing, predominantly SEO, very multilingual, at scale, content creation, likewise at scale for many markets, many sectors. And it's a really, our focus is usually on highly competitive and highly regulated industries, where every second counts, really. That's kind of where we fit in and where we try and make our mark.
Ben, you're on mute, it seems.
There we go. Yeah, I'll give a brief introduction to seasonal campaigns just to get us started here. It's what you would think as a fairly similar, fairly easy concept to understand, but just to quickly run through that. There we go. So seasonal marketing understandably focuses on campaigns during specific times of the year. Now, those times of the year are going to vary depending on what your business is and what you focus on. So in a lot of instances, it's going to be the likes of Christmas and Black Friday. So there's a good reason we're doing this topic right now. It's a good time to get ready for those 2 events, but it can include plenty of others as well. Could be Valentine's Day. You could be a very summer specific business. There are other times of year as well that some businesses might not choose to delve into very much, but it might be very core to what you do. So it can vary is the overall point there. And understandably, spend and purchase interest does increase during these times of year. In a lot of instances, it is potential. So I think that's probably the most important point to take from that bottom bullet point there, is that it's the potential promotional opportunities. There's still a lot of work to do to be able to take advantage of this. And hopefully we'll cover off quite a few tips that are going to help you out as we go into these sort of seasonal months. But certainly, yes, it's not just a case of this is a better time of year to sell, therefore automatically you're going to get more sales. There's still work to be done. And understandably, everyone wants to get involved in these times of years, particularly Christmas and Black Friday. So yes, whilst it can be a very lucrative time of year, there is very much a need to plan ahead and stand out from the crowd, because you know that everyone else is going to be doing the exact same thing that you are. That fight for the inbox, if we're talking about email marketing, but really in all forms, it is a fight for attention is probably the overarching term here. And spend can increase, but again, it's about utilizing the latest technology. It's about using specific tactics to get ahead of your competitors, and ensure that when your email hits the inbox, as an example, it's yours that's getting the open, it's yours that's getting the click, and ultimately it's yours that's getting the purchase. Just to run through some of the benefits of seasonal campaigns. So I'll take each of these 4 bullet points one at a time, starting with the probably most obvious one, increase sales. So yeah, as mentioned, it is a great time of year to increase those sales, and purchases can go through the roof if you're doing things correctly. The most important thing to bear in mind here is you need to put the right product in front of the right customer at the right time. Personalized, relevant communication is the core to doing seasonal marketing well. You could argue it's the core to doing all marketing well, but it becomes even more important when it comes to these seasonal times of year. If you've got a well thought out, considered plan ahead of time, and that's one of our top tips that we'll speak about a bit towards the end of this webinar, just sending more emails or increasing your number of comms just as a pure number, that isn't enough in its own right. And then at the bottom there, discounts and coupons. They're a highly effective tool, and it's something you would want to consider at this time of year. Certainly, I think that they should be used effectively and most of the time in moderation. So if you aren't commonly using discounts and coupons, you know that at certain times of the year, whenever you do use them, they're going to stand out quite substantially. They're going to stand out in that inbox. The second point is increased brand awareness. So again, brands don't want their voice to be lost in the shuffle when there are so many marketing campaigns going around from other companies. You can differentiate yourself here by providing comms such as festive greetings. So any sort of Christmas card campaigns are very popular because they really stand out from all of the other salesy type emails that will exist at this point in time. So, it will really, as you see an inbox, and we're all aware that in an email inbox in December 10th, as an example, there are going to be emails everywhere from all sorts of companies. You're able to provide something a bit different, something that isn't just looking for the hard sell. That's probably going to stand out and garner you a better open rate and potentially click-through rate if that's what you're after. Sales announcements as well can be quite effective here. Product recommendations. We'll get onto cross-sell a little bit more, so I won't go into that more right at this point. Enhanced customer relationships is the third point here. So, seasonal marketing is the perfect way to build those relationships, providing valuable information. Providing value is the key to email marketing and marketing as a whole anyway, but particularly when a customer has a limited attention span at this time of year, you've just got to get to that value as soon as possible. So providing VIP perks is another one, really valuable. And I'm sure everyone's aware, but acquiring a new customer is much more costly than retaining an existing one. Here, we think it's something close to 5 times the amount. That number might vary depending on who you listen to, but I think everyone can agree it is far more costly to do it that way round. So if you're able to deliver a great experience, let's say one Christmas time, the odds are there will be the need for that product or a similar product again next year. And if you've delivered a good experience the first time around, that massively increases your odds of getting that repeat business. And the last one is cost effectiveness. So at least in relation to email marketing, for every $1 you spend, $40 average return. Again, that's a stat that will change depending on who you're listening to, but ROI is one of the main benefits of email marketing. Automation is a really important cost-effective tool to be using at this time of year. So if you're able to set those up quite effectively, you're giving yourself more time, more breathing room to look at some of the other bespoke campaigns that you want to focus on at this time of year. If you're able to let automation run in the background, do its job, particularly regarding transactional emails and updates for the customer, then you're able to focus on some of the more creative sends that you want to be able to spend time on.
Yep, I think those points are really, really important to bear in mind, no matter what type of campaign you're doing. I think definitely the brand aspect of this stuff is so crucial to actually making a real cut through during these seasonal moments. Having a bad brand for the rest of the year, then hoping a seasonal trend will push you up is a really risky way of doing it. The idea should be that you've got this ongoing approach to customer experience, customer service, using automation correctly, using technology, being there in the inbox at the right time, but then also making sure that your brand equity is there so that people do open your email at the right time on the right day in these peak periods. One of the ways that we at ICS try and anticipate those peak periods is to look at seasonal search trends and when do people start looking for purchases around a particular date. when do they start looking for, coupons and so on? Even if that's not your niche, that's not your strategy, it can indicate when interest in general might be on the rise. And in this case, you can see for Black Friday, the spikes were getting bigger up until 2019, then became a little bit less as I think we all got more used to Black Friday. But nevertheless, you'll see it doesn't just spike on the day and then disappear as you'd expect. There is a run up. People are anticipating these seasonal events, and the kind of half-life you've got to work with does differ depending on the size of the event. So, for example, it seems like Christmas is now a 2-month thing. So looking at when people start searching for particular types of product or particular types of customer experience, that's when you can factor that into your own planning and think, when do I need to start making competitive moves or starting to schedule my content plan or whatever it happens to be. Certainly for Black Friday, we've had clients start their planning back in May, which is very, very sensible given what we do, which is mostly the search engine optimization side of things. To have a real cut through in November, having that bedrock of activity, getting your product listings correct, getting your technical infrastructure sorted out, doing keyword research, all that type of stuff. It benefits from being done ahead of time and bedding in. And it's the same for other seasonal events like Ben mentioned. So Valentine's, you can be thinking about party seasons for Christmas. You can be thinking about, Father's Day, Mother's Day, all this type of stuff. And increasingly, people sort of look at a broad summer season, I suppose, for certain types of buying decision. But the key with this type of graph here is you can, on Google Trends, type in the seasonal event you're looking at and look at what the size of the prize might be in terms of search volume and when people start their searches. Often large, powerful companies can be internally bureaucratic and slow to act. So this is where if you're a smaller company and you're more organized, you can compete more effectively by getting your stuff live sooner when people start searching, not just on the day. So this is something to bear in mind for your future planning. I guess the next slide, yeah, the rewards for doing so are pretty ample. Certainly Black Friday, some of the, I guess the novelty has worn off. I don't think we're going to be seeing like amazing, truly amazing deals, but that doesn't really matter. Shoppers are smart. They realize that they're not going to be appalled if the discounts that they're getting are not life-changing. They're still interested. They're still aware of that day in the calendar now. And it is an area where if you get the planning correct, you can anticipate this interest and intercept. So the search interest in the term Black Friday, it starts 12 weeks before. People are starting to try and figure out what might be available. And, in a more sober and less exciting tone, I suppose, is the cost of living crisis. It's not just people looking for an amazing deal because they want to spend disposable income on a really, big lifestyle purchase. It's also people looking for products and services that they need and want at a lower cost because of cost of living. And part of the way to capitalize on that interest, to support people, make sure they know what products and services are available to them at a good price, is to build up your trusted content, develop that material in advance, and make sure that you can rank for terms that are being searched for potentially up to 12 weeks or more in advance. Next slide, please. So there's a million and one things you could be doing from a search engine optimization perspective. It's important to be realistic and not to panic and think you have to do absolutely everything. It's a bit like that old joke of like two guys camping in the woods and a bear stumbles across them. One guy starts running, the other guy starts putting on his trainers. And the first man says, well, why are you putting your trainers on? You're not going to outrun a bear. And the guy says, well, all I need to do is outrun you. So the idea is not to be the best at everything all of the time. It's just to beat your competitors meaningfully. And then you can carve out some competitive advantage and take advantage of these seasonal trends. that's kind of where it's important to look at your own technical infrastructure from an SEO perspective and think which improvement would have the biggest effect on your actual results. That for e-commerce, it is often as basic as images and file sizes that might be slowing the site down. It can be if your mobile performance is subpar, which these days is not an optional. And certainly looking at the code of the website itself. Is it easily indexed by Google and other search engines? If they cannot find, understand, and categorize your site, it can't be ranked appropriately. So we're trying to make it easier for Google. And then similarly, you got to look at the human factor of this and the human aspect of the customer experience, as Ben was alluding. From that click, if you do a great job for the email marketing, once you've earned that click, is the experience on the other side just as good? So if you're forcing people to go off-site to get their promo, if people are wanting to make some kind of a comparison because what they are faced with is not immediately impressive, and that takes them away from the site, that's not so good. You're trying to give us maximum clarity, and that's where your content strategy, your SEO strategy can help make sure you get an informed click organically, but also that on-page experience will be really superior to competitors if you're getting that click earned from an email campaign, for example. So you're trying to give people a reason to say yes. Nobody goes on your site looking to say no and not buy something. They don't want to waste their own time. They want to make a purchase. They're there to browse and evaluate. So making sure the site is high performing, builds trust, is fast, has all of the security certificates you expect, the payment methods you'd expect. It's important not to push away customers in these peak periods, especially when they might not be making a purchase, which is the result of a long buying cycle. It might be an impulse buy. So to capitalize on that, you've got to make a frictionless experience as far as possible. And in terms of getting it wrong, obviously the impact for getting it wrong is bigger for larger organizations, but it is still jaw-dropping at times because it's still somebody's job. And for every minute, like a John Lewis website is down, they are hemorrhaging money. Same for, Thanksgiving in the US as well. Thanksgiving weekend is still a big sales opportunity. And it's a case that happened in the UK as well. So the game website crashing within seconds of Black Friday deals launching. It's not just about the lost revenue for those minutes or hours that the site is offline. It's also leaving that memory for users that this site might not be trustworthy. I might not get my product. It might be easier and quicker to go elsewhere. So these seasonal trends can be good because you get a lot of attention, but you've got to make sure that attention is positive. So it's an opportunity and a risk. So I guess the advice would be to make sure you're well prepared to please the audiences you attract at this time. Getting them there is one thing, and earning the click from email marketing or from search engine optimization, that's one part of it. You've got them there, that's fantastic, but you've got to impress once they're actually on the site as well. And similarly, content is one of the big ways to do that, not just pumping out any and every piece of content you can, which is easier than ever with AI. But the idea really should be to make sure you're unlocking non-brand traffic, so people who aren't already searching for you, encouraging them to make a confident buying decision and making sure that you're able to deftly meet the needs of multiple audiences at once, wherever possible, which is not always easy. So on the next few slides, we can run through a couple of audience types. So we've got people like the deal seeker, impulse purchasers, people that are early birds. The idea is that you're making sure that you're optimizing your content for seasonal buying personas, factoring in the content itself on the page, which can be textual, audio, video, the images you choose to use, the marketing campaigns that bring people there, and making sure that you're attracting as many people as possible without pushing anyone else away, which is a difficult balance at times because you can't be everything to everybody all of the time. So this is where you've got to make some right decisions for your brand and based upon the value of various personas. So in terms of the next slide, you've got people who are more impulsive, who make a decision based upon what they've seen most recently. They want to just get a frictionless experience. They've seen something, they didn't necessarily want it yesterday, but they want it today. And if they can't get it today, they might not want it tomorrow. So that's, again, something you can factor into your SEO and content strategy, the user experience. Likewise, on the next slide, there's people that might be searching predominantly for deals, not necessarily as impulsive. They might have been planning for a long time. They might be the type of people that keep something in their cart for months on end, waiting for a discount. But to properly attract their attention, you've got to make sure that you're very clear and upfront about the attributes of your products, the pricing, the ability to research for themselves and find their own way about whatever particular questions they may have about an informed purchase. So they want to make sure that it's a trustworthy source, but they might not care who they buy this from. They might be more focused on a product. And that's where making sure that you're giving them all of the product information they need, particularly at seasonal times, is important, because that might be when they are finally ready to press the button to buy. And then finally, you've got people who are what we call early birds, people that want to be first to get a deal. These are people that can typically be motivated by the fear of missing out. So if there is a genuine, restriction of the number of items available, limited stock, time-sensitive offers, this is where they might be able to be motivated. I think these days, there's not as many of these people as before. People are a bit savvier. Some brands have ruined it for themselves by having like a constant year-round sale. So there's no incentive to buy immediately, or people that use coupons and discounts all the time. And for some brands, like I guess Domino's, that they factor that into their strategy. They're aware that pretty much everybody's going to use a coupon of some sort. Other brands can be damaged by that because then you're not really creating any time factor for making a purchase. But nevertheless, it's good to try and accommodate as many of the personas that are relevant to you as possible. And it might be that for your brand, you've got different people, different types of traits, but it's important to look into who is it that you're trying to engage and take an outside-in perspective, not just an inside-out, not just what you want to sell or what you want to say about yourself, but try and think of what are their requirements, what are their needs, and how can I meet those needs, both in terms of the on-page content, the search strategy, but then also, like we've been discussing before, the email marketing strategy. What will cause them to make an informed click? How will you stand out in a crowded inbox? To wrap that up, really, it's about making sure there's content for every stage of that cycle. So from the awareness point, where people are first becoming aware of your brand or the availability of certain products, the consideration phase where people are comparing products, which is a difficult one for a lot of brick and mortar brands, because this comparison might happen without them ever speaking to a member of your staff. Then finally, that decision to make a purchase. How frictionless is that experience? How can you accommodate somebody who just wants to buy now? Are you putting up barriers, or are you making it easier? And it's good to take a really sober approach to that as well, not to not have ego as part of this. It's good to be as honest with yourself as you can, but where you can remove friction and not just rely on brand. And likewise, one of the easiest ways to do that is to make sure you're prioritizing correctly, not trying to do everything all at once for every possible product line or every product category. Use your analytics to identify the products that people are searching most for, the ones that you have a propensity to sell more of, where you are seen as a good source, a good supplier, an obvious choice. That's kind of where you can lean into your strengths. So use Google Analytics data, look at the customer journey, what sections of the site need most attention, which ones have the greatest propensity to provide revenue, and which sides of the site need more work, which might be something you do out with the scope of a seasonal campaign. So focus on where you're strongest. A lot of what we say at ICS-digital is around avoiding fatal half measures. There's loads of people that are really busy all of the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're working on the right thing or they're able to work hard enough and effectively enough to make the impact that they want to achieve. So rather than do that, focus on where you can reasonably win. And sometimes it's better to do nothing than something if you're not going to succeed. That's why it's good to take a sober approach, be guided by search trends, be guided by your own analytics, and see where you can compete most effectively on a seasonal basis, if at all. And then likewise, searches for things like Black Friday are concentrated between certain time-sensitive periods. Having a pre and post-event messaging strategy, personas, content hubs, make sure that's done well in advance. If indeed this is something you're committed to as a company, avoid those fatal half measures, and make it part of a wider plan, not something you do reactively and think, oh God, the data's upon us, I need to do something. Try and have a more planned strategy, which might mean you disregard other seasonal opportunities. You prioritize. And that can be a difficult thing sometimes, but that's the way to really test out, does this idea have legs? Which seasonal event is most appropriate for me? That's kind of the approach to take. Likewise, making sure that you're not just doing seasonal content, but making sure that you're having a relevant amount of content throughout the year is really important. So you want to make sure that pages can be indexed, can be linked to, can be strong and strengthened throughout the year. So for example, in this case, having an iPhone product listing just for Black Friday is not going to be very good, because it's going to be new content. It might not be indexed in time. It'll probably have few links pointing to it. It might not be well integrated within your wider site. Better is to have your existing product page and product categories and strengthen them throughout the year. So for example, strengthen the iPhone category, Apple category, and then when there does happen to be an incentive around a seasonal event, add content into the existing page. So in this case, there's been a little bar added to say Black Friday exclusive. The reviews are always up to date because it's not like a new page. These are pulled in from previous. If you're able to have pros, cons, and comparisons, that's all to the good as well. Keeping that in there will be just as relevant on a seasonal campaign as it will be throughout the rest of the year. So the idea is not to compete with yourself by having multiple pages all around the same product. The idea is to try and consolidate as much power and strength in the categories and product pages that you have throughout the year, and then you can have a more efficient strategy. That's kind of where you can do this, not just for tech products, but you can look at whatever you have ranking for example, Father's Day gift, black party dress. That's a huge one, always every Christmas it seems. So do your research, look at your analytics, and you'll find the best way forward. And I'll pass back to Ben.
Cool. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to look at cross-selling, really. And I think in a lot of respects, this comes back to your point of how you can't be everything to everyone all the time, in that segmentation is so valuable, and putting product recommendations in front of the right people is so valuable as well. So working out what products go well with one another is really vital when it comes to e-commerce. So if you're utilizing behavioral data, so at its core, obviously that's going to be what have they purchased, but also think about other things in terms of not only what have they purchased, but when have they purchased it, and who have they purchased it for. So a lot of the time when it comes to seasonal marketing, let's take Valentine's Day as an example. There might be a go-to product that you have for a partner every single year. And there might be 2 weeks of the entire year that you're incredibly interested in that product, but you know that for the other 50, that they are absolutely not interested in that product whatsoever. But if you assume that because they are interested in that product for those 2 weeks, and you assume that they are therefore always interested in that product no matter what, you're likely going to cause disillusionment with sending irrelevant emails out or irrelevant communications out for nearly the entire year. So yes, look at what they've purchased, but do a bit of a deeper dive on when and why and who for, because that will increase the relevancy of the communications you're sending out. obviously the behavioral data is largely going to form those segments that you're sending out to, but don't ignore engagement data as well. And in a lot of respects, the best sort of segments are where you can combine behavioral data and engagement data. So engagement data, this could be opens, this can be clicks, this can be anything relating to that. So certainly if you want to send out a large number of communications at, say, Christmas, but you don't want to, you want to avoid bombarding people with too many communications, why not send follow-up emails to only people who've clicked on the first email that you've sent about a particular product, as an example? You know, you can get clever with what people have done in the past, both in terms of behavioral data, in terms of product purchase, but also in terms of how they've engaged with email. And the dynamic content, that's going to be based on both of those things. So, you know, in a lot of instances, it will be highly personalized product recommendations, cross-sell opportunities as well. A quick word here on competitor insights, because as mentioned, all of your competitors are going to be doing a very similar amount to you at these times of year. So it's very important to keep an eye on what they're doing, what they're sending, when they're sending it, how often they're sending it. And that's not to say that you should directly copy whatever your competitors are doing, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they aren't going to be getting everything right. You can't just assume they're going to be getting everything right. So certainly take a look at it. Take inspiration from it is probably the better phrase. But don't necessarily copy it, because you might be picking up bad habits that they've inherited. And also when it comes to audience insights, I appreciate that within a certain industry, you're going to be very similar to other companies. But just because something works for a competitor, it doesn't mean it will work for you. Every single database is completely and utterly unique. Your business is completely and utterly unique. So to assume that because something works for a competitor, it doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you. Maybe they sent all of their emails out on a weekday evening, and that works for them. But potentially, you know, for you, it might be a weekend. Who's to say? Certainly aspects like A/B testing is really valuable here to work out what exactly works for your business. But yeah, it's important to take a look at competitors, but just be wary as well.
Yeah,
in terms of competitor rankings, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely echo that. You know, I think sometimes it's really difficult to create a complete strategy from a blank page. Often, because we are consumers ourselves, if you can experience something and see what competitors are up to, you might have an instinctive reaction that might guide you to think, okay, that's quite good, or that's not so good, and then test it out for yourself. And it's the same approach for SEO. Competitors might rank for certain terms, and you think, well, that could be a good thing. It doesn't mean that they're making money off of that. What you can probably say is if multiple companies are bidding on some keywords in Google Ads or whatever, that might indicate that there is some commercial value, because there's a consensus in the industry that it's worth paying for this type of keyword. But even then, it can be a case of follow the leader, where a whole bunch of companies bid against themselves for no good reason. You need to be able to run your own race, but don't discount what people are already ranking for. It can give you a head start. It can give you a hint of where attention might be. Try and cross-reference that with what people are searching for, and also make your own decision about, okay, this does look like a big opportunity, but is it an opportunity I can capitalize on? Has it already been sewn up by competitors? Often that'll not be the case, because they won't be as purposeful as you can be if you really choose to prioritize. But it's also worth bearing in mind, it might be a disappointing situation where, yes, it's absolutely a valuable approach, but I can't compete because somebody else has got it wrapped up. So you need to do something else. So it's about making your own business decisions as well, but not disregarding the insight that is available from your email marketing, competitor analysis, and then this search data as well.
A little bit on audience insights, and I think we've somewhat covered a lot of this off thanks to other slides as well. But it's just the number one takeaway for me here is that 2 subscribers might be interested in your business, and that might be the only thing that actually connects the two. There can be so much that separates them, both in terms of demographic data. It could be behavioral data. One person might be interested in a very specific product of your business. The other person might be interested in your brand and the work that you do. And it's so, you want to be able to segment as much as makes sense, in that you could get far too detailed on segmentation to the point where you're building segments that just aren't worth it, to the point where you're only sending to a couple of people. But equally, the send to all strategy just doesn't work anymore. Arguably, it didn't really work to begin with, but even more so now, it just doesn't quite work because it's just not relevant and targeted enough now. And yeah, obviously segmentation, this is an opportunity to tailor your content and your offers. A lot of the time where we're talking about seasonal marketing, it is a cyclical nature, where, you might have customers that are very interested in your business at a certain point of year. Take advantage of that, and really hone in on it.
Yeah, so I'm certainly happy to wrap up some of the SEO thinking on this. It can seem intimidating, but in reality, I think SEO is more simple than it used to be 10 years ago. There's fewer tricks and weird things and gimmicks. It's really more about having a quality-based strategy. So having that user experience in play that we talked about before, making sure you're not pushing anybody away. If you're having an optimized experience for your users, that's probably what Google will want to see as well. So no slow loading, no weird pop-ups, no unnecessary clicks. Don't make people jump through hoops to, accommodate your design of the website. Focus on their goals and how do you, make a purchase decision. Keyword strategy, likewise, this is a way you can identify what people are already searching for, but don't take that as gospel. You might want to do something more innovative, which is more difficult, but then you can potentially own a category. But certainly keyword research is easier to do now than it ever has been. There's so many really good, reliable tools, but you can look at things on a brand basis, product basis, non-brand, what are people searching for? And crucially, like I said before, when do people start searching? Is it 12 weeks before the event, 4 weeks, 18 weeks? Make sure you have content that can accommodate their questions and respond to their requirements, and you'll be in a much more competitive position. To do that, you need that trusted content. Google has been banging on about this phrase EAT for a long time now, which it used to just be EAT. Unhelpfully, they've added an extra E, so it's EEAT. So experience, expertise, authority, and trust. So experience is I'm somebody that has used high-end headphones. Expertise is I'm an audio technician that can talk about the traits of these headphones. Authority, this product is on a site that is secure, stable, nothing weird going on. And then the trust factor as well would probably be down to how is this site being seen by other sites on the internet? Is it linked to? Does it get media coverage? So all of these factors are really important for your content and the website in general. And this is simpler than it ever has been. Related to that is the PR side, and related to that also is making sure you have the reporting set up as well to make sure that you're not doing fatal half measures. You're focusing in on what is effective and doing better next year.
A few tips and tricks from our side. A lot of the things that we discuss and plan with our clients. So planning campaigns ahead of time. I can't bang the drum enough on this one about how important this is, because ensuring contacts are receiving the correct number, whatever that correct number is for you, number of communications at these busier times of years is really important. And look, I mean, the overall strategy, the campaigns themselves, they will change. There will be tweaks to the calendar, and that's absolutely fine. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it in the first place. Having that sort of foundation ready to be able to tweak when you get closer to the deadlines. You are going to have instances where, I don't know, a product isn't selling as well as you thought it would at a time of year, and you want to include that in the mix. That's okay, but you can see how that will interact with all the other sends if you have this plan ahead of time. So outline the goals you want to achieve, and then really once you've outlined the goals, the campaigns you can mold from there. You definitely want to do it in that order. Plan your goals, the campaigns will sort of create themselves as a result of those goals rather than the other way around. Eye-catching visuals. This is another one that is important at any time of the year, but when you've got such a low attention span, on average attention span for readers and subscribers, you just want to be able to capture the attention almost straight away. I'll come on to subject lines in just a moment, but the subject line has done its job. It's got the open. If you're then greeted by something other than an eye-catching visual, it's all for nothing. And it could be video and email, which is becoming increasingly popular. It could be an eye-catching GIF. It could just be a standard image that is really powerful. It can be one of a few different things, but as long as it's eye-catching and as long as it grabs someone's attention straight away, the average attention span is probably less than 10 seconds when it comes to email. It's not very long whatsoever. So, an eye-catching visual can get to the brunt of the story very quickly, and then feed into the rest of the copy that you've got included. Captivating subject lines. So, this is the difference between an open and not a lot of the time. So how they've interacted with your previous emails, have they found them relevant and engaging? That will be one factor in determining whether an open happens on the next campaign. But that subject line is the instant giveaway. So you need to make it count. The number one tip on this one is just make it short and snappy. Don't go too long with it. That is absolutely the tendency to do that, to try to pack in too much information. You aren't going to be able to get it done. There's too few characters to do that. So whether it's using a rhetorical question, whether it's using an emoji or an ellipses, there are so many tactics you can use with subject lines, and you're just going to have to find out, really realistically, using A/B testing. You're going to have to find out what works for you and your business. But that subject line is so crucial. And as is the preview text that goes along with that, the preview text or the pre-header, it goes by both names. But, that can often be the supplementary information that goes alongside the subject line. If you use those two in tandem, that can increase open rates quite substantially at this time of year. And then the final point for me, just tracking your results, because when you go to do the same sort of strategic planning next year, it's going to be really valuable if you've done a bit of the legwork initially in working out, well, what has worked this year? What hasn't worked this year? Why? Really delve into it. You're not going to be able to improve if you don't review your results. That's the most simple way of putting it. So, utilize the data to work out what segments have been worthwhile setting up, which ones haven't. Of your automated campaigns, which ones have been working, which ones haven't? Do you need to tweak them ahead of the next time you go into the same sort of season? All of those essential insights can be discovered at this point.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Martin. Some really good insights there. And I'm sure, just like myself, the rest of us taking some real key nuggets away there. Just a reminder, if you haven't put your questions in yet, you've been too engrossed like me, then now's an opportunity while I just cover off the first couple that we've had in, if you want to pop those in now. But yeah, just the first question to table to you two. How can I ensure high click-through rates when so many emails are being sent out?
I mean, if there was such a simple answer to that, it would be great. It's covering off all of those what we've said out there today. But it's going back to the relevant targeted messaging is the number one I can advise on.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, is it a good idea to implement a preference center?
Yes. I'll expand on yes, but in short, yes. It's something we didn't quite get time to discuss, but absolutely having a preference center is a good idea, because you're going to avoid falling into some of the pitfalls that we've mentioned today of, if you are only interested in a product for a specific week of the year, if you're able to set that in some sort of preference center, you don't have to do any guesswork at that point on, are they going to be interested in receiving this communication in June and in December? It's already there for you. You don't want to make a preference center overly onerous. You don't want to give hundreds of options, because people don't have the time and they don't have the patience to be able to go through all of that. But certainly if you provide key content areas, key topic areas, and people are able to identify, this is what I'm interested in, this is not what I'm interested in, that's going to help you down the line for sure.
Great. Thank you very much again, Ben and Martin. That's that's all we've had in terms of questions. Hopefully, like I've already said, everyone's enjoyed the session. I invite you in later sessions to come and join us again. If you've got any questions, then certainly get in touch with either Ben, myself, Martin. We'll be more than happy to speak through anything you want any more detail on. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Everybody.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.